this is a follow-up video. Sorry it's been a long time since I've done a video update for you guys. I was in the process of getting affordable handguns, sub 350 handguns, and finding out what they're worth. So just so you know, this is a video about sub 350 handguns and whether or not they're worth it. First handgun on the list is actually the first handgun I ever bought. It's the Taurus pt111 Millennium. I got the duotone version. And my verdict on that was it had Heine style sights. Some like that, some don't. Just be aware of it. Apparently it was inconsistent as well on what kind of sight that it got. I remember that now. But that firearm was extremely inaccurate. From most of the reviews I read on it after owning it, that was a terribly common thing. It shot very low, very left all the time. And it did have a pretty bad trigger. So that sucked. But it was an affordable firearm that was 100% reliable. So if you can get around that, if you can adjust the sights and, accurize it to your liking, sure. But I wouldn't spend money on it if I can get it for around $250. I would never buy that firearm for more than that. Next, the Taurus pt709 Slim. I'm not sure if it was the beta version or not, because the beta version of the 709 had the upgraded ejector that fixed its extraction issues. I did have extraction issues, that's why I say that. My pt709 Slim, great handgun for concealed carry, very thin. I think it's like 3/4 of an inch thin. It was great, plus P rated, like most of Taurus's firearms are, so that's a plus. In 9mm, I had no failure to feeds, but I did have, within a magazine, 2 or 3 failures to ejects, which is why I eventually got rid of it. Granted, it's Taurus, could have sent it in, got it worked on. I just opted not to. I had lost all confidence in that firearm, and that is exactly why whenever I get a firearm, I shoot the crap out of it, at least 300-400 rounds, before I carry it as a self-defense firearm. So that one is a good one if you can get it for around $300 to $350. However, and I'll get to that, there's a better option. Next one up is the Sccy cpx2. That one I had in stainless. And that one, it came with 2 magazines, 2 10-round magazines, also plus P rated. It was 100% reliable. It had polymer style 3-dot sights. A lot of people don't like polymer sights. I don't really particularly care. But 100% reliable, 100% American made. It was built like a tank. Had simple takedown. The trigger was what killed it for me, and the recoil. It had very stout recoil. Even though it has a built-in like gel recoil absorbing thing in the handle, I couldn't fire more than 50 rounds at a time with it before it started to become too painful to shoot. And I am recoil sensitive, so know your limitations, right? So I just opted to get rid of it. But as far as guns go, it's great. As long as you can train with it, it's a great gun to get, and you can get it for less than, for the around $350 range. It depends on where you go, of course, but shop online, that's what I do. Next one up, the Zastava m70a. This is a modern version of the Tokarev pistol. It's chambered in 9mm. It's a new manufactured gun, so it comes with a warranty. My main thing that I didn't like about that gun excuse me, was that the firearm itself had some defects. It had a defective magazine catch. The front sight was askew, not seated properly inside the sight cut. Excuse me. And one last thing, what was it? Oh, right. It's a single action pistol with a slide mounted safety. That makes no sense to me at all. That's honestly why I got rid of it, because minus playing with it at the range, that gun's completely freaking useless in any kind of an actual defensive scenario. The way that the magazine, or the way that the safety activates and deactivates, you have to completely discombobulate your grip in order to turn the safety off. And obviously you have to carry it cocked because it's a single action only firearm. If you honestly think that you can draw a firearm and pull the hammer back and then use it in a defensive situation, then you're one of those people that can carry without a round in the chamber and think that you're okay, and you're not. So that was my take on it. It's cool to have, I guess, but whatever. Ruger 9E. This one I actually do have with me. This is one of the, we're getting to the ones that I actually still possess. I'm in the process of trying to sell, but not because it's not a good firearm, but just because I cycle through them, clearly. This firearm, I'll start with the bad. I did have to send it back, but for a apparently very common problem. I had light primer strikes with this firearm. Sent it back, they fixed it, sent it back to me, didn't cost me anything, and they... I've had to send a couple of Rugers back for various reasons, and don't think that's anything bad about Ruger, I just have shit luck. I've had to send back almost every gun I've owned. They also sent me one of those silicone-infused cloths with it, the Ruger brand silicone cloth. I thought that was nice. It's a nice touch. I have to say, I was incredibly accurate with this firearm. More than I'm used to being. So I attribute that to how naturally accurate someone can be with this firearm, with my particular stature and, you know, hand size and all. Comes with a rail, but it's not standard rail that I can tell. I actually had to slightly modify it to actually make it be able to fit the light that I had. So finding crap that will actually fit this gun will be a bit difficult. Apparently Ruger's, you know, infamous for doing that. I don't know. The thing about the 9E is that, by the way, I also want to get this out of the way. The E stands for essential, not for economy. Just so that people know, because I hear everybody say that, it's wrong. It stands for essential. It doesn't come with a mag loader, which the one that the SR9 comes with is garbage anyway, and it doesn't come with the extra magazine, but that's okay. You know, I bought a 2-pack of, and it takes SR9 magazines, so it's the same magazine. Bought a 2-pack of magazines, so now I have 3 of them, and I bought that pack for like $40. So yeah, it depends on where you go, you'll find a deal. One thing that I do like about this is that it is not necessary to dry fire the firearm in order to take it down. There is the extractor right here inside of it. You push that down and disassemble it like normal, pushing out the pin and everything, and you never have to dry fire it in order to take the firearm apart. You can if you're okay with that, but I prefer not to. Another good thing is that when you reassemble the firearm, you don't have to pull that back up. You can just insert the magazine and it pushes the extractor back into its operating position. So that's fun. The safety is like a 1911 in its position. It's very easy to get to. Some people don't like it when it's easy to get the safety on. It's not as easy as it can be, but you know, it switches up and down very easily. Fully ambidextrous for the magazine release and for the safety. Not for the slide stop, but if you're one of those people that power racks when you reload, it doesn't matter anyway. I found the trigger on this to be agreeable. Some people, there's been mixed reviews saying that the trigger is creaky or squeaky. It is 100% polymer, so I guess I can understand people thinking that, but I didn't have that in my experience. I think it's a nice trigger. One downside I can say about this, though, is their extractor is all the way back here, and I found that basically what that leaves you with is one cut right here to grip with, to actually rack it with. And there was times when I would try to rack it and my hand would slip. Like, it's really slick. So that kind of sucks, but, you know, it is what it is. Another thing that I like this more than the original SR9 over is that it has Novak cut sights. So any Novak style cut sights you can throw into this bad boy and it'll work fine. You don't have to get the custom ones like for the Ruger SR9. Also, the sight picture on this firearm is superior, in my opinion, to the one on the SR9. The SR9 is very up and cramped and close together because it's a fully adjustable sight. But these guys, it's a pretty wide open, you know, it gets the job done sight. There's a striker indicator in the back here that when it's, you know, cocked or whatever the hell it is for this sort of thing, it's charged. You can see the back of that little plunger tube. And when you pull the trigger, it depresses. I don't really think that's necessary, but whatever. If the thing's not cocked, the trigger's going to be all the way back because it's a striker-fired handgun, but whatever. So there's that. Put that away. That was a $300 gun, and I love it, and I would like to keep it. Maybe I'll get it again in the future, who knows, but I'm one of those dudes that cycles through guns. You know, I like to play with them for a while. And I recommend it. That gun, 100% great, minus the light primer strikes that I was getting. That might be an issue. I don't know. I don't know if they fixed that since, but I love it, and it was a $300 gun. And so far, everywhere I've seen it, it's a consistent price. 100% American made. Go for it. Next one up is the Taurus pt111 G2. This is the second gen of the first gun I ever owned, and what does that tell you? That it's the gun that I'm carrying right now. It comes with two 12-round magazines, whereas the Ruger 9E only came with one 17-round magazine. It has a manual safety. You can choose to ignore it if you want. It is It doesn't have the trigger safety like a Glock, so you don't really need a manual safety. This trigger is also all polymer, so that's something else. If you don't like polymer triggers, whatever. But I like how this one has the Sccy style blade in the center of the trigger, where it's all pushed forward and it comes back evenly instead of it being like a little, you know, doob that like catches the bottom of your trigger finger and it can be irritating. I'm not as accurate with this firearm, but that's probably more me than anything. The actual trigger pull itself on this is something worth noting, and if you read any reviews on it, it's always mentioned that when I first got this gun, and I dry fire a gun when I first got it to see how it feels and all that, I thought that it was broken because the trigger pulled all the way to the rear with no give whatsoever, or no tension. It goes all the way to the rear and then finally breaks. So that's really weird how it does that. And I'm not somebody that likes demonstrating trigger pulls. You don't really get anything out of that. But the reset's about where it would be first pull every time. So it's basically like it's a normal single action every single time. But it's just weird how it's like that, and it breaks all the way in the rear. And I think that affects my accuracy. I don't know. But I bought this for $200 flat with two 12-round magazines, one of which I modified, and you have the option of doing this, which is what I did. I took an old Beretta mag, cut a notch in it so it would lock up at the proper height in this firearm, took the follower out of the second magazine they gave you, put it in the Beretta mag, and now it's a fully functional high-cap magazine for this firearm. You can do that, or from what I've seen online, apparently the Taurus 24/7 series magazines fit and function fine, exactly, without any modification whatsoever, from what I'm told. So keep that in mind. That's something that's cool. It takes down just like a Glock. It has a window that you can see if it's loaded with the brass inside. Polymer sights, fully adjustable for windage and elevation, which is cool. Plus P rated, that's a must for me. And it does also come with a rail, so if you're a lights and lasers kind of guy, boom, there you go. This, for the price, I'm really hard-pressed to beat, and I gotta say, this grippy stuff on here is freaking rad. It really grips you up real good. It's got a good adhesion to your hand, but not too much. What I will note, though, is that if you don't tuck your shirt in like I do, it does kind of abrade your skin a little bit and kind of get uncomfortable, so, I mean, that's something to keep in mind. So there's that. I'm going to put that back where it belongs. Okay, what's next? The Ruger Lc9S. That's this bad boy right here. This is basically kind of a second gen. Don't laugh at me. My wife's the camera person. This is the second generation of the Ruger Lc9, which was originally a double action only pistol. Now it is striker fire. That's what the S stands for. It has an all metal trigger. Both the blade and the trigger itself are all metal. It has a magazine disconnect. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. Some people are weird about that. I'm not, so whatever. It has a great trigger. The recoil on this is one of the least recoiling firearms that I own, which is odd considering its size, but I mean, I attribute that to how really stiff the recoil spring is. It's a double recoil spring guide rod assembly, so it's got like a lot of recoil spring. That's probably why it doesn't kick like a mule. But it's got this sight picture, in my opinion, is similar to how the SR9's was. You see how the two rear dots are really close together and they're like pushed up kind of high. That I don't really like, but for a firearm this small, obviously it's not a target gun, it's a self-defense gun. So it's basically from like me to the wall behind you, which is not far, to get what you're going for. Excuse me. But this gun is retailing now for around $300, $350, depending on where you go. It does have a manual safety. You can use it or forget about it. Doesn't matter. There is also a version 3 of this, which is the Lc9S Pro. Has no magazine, or it has no manual safety. I believe it has no magazine disconnect, and you don't have to dry fire the weapon to take it down. So those are all pluses. I really don't care. I have this gun, and it's freaking awesome. I love it. So 100% American made, so that's a plus. I'd say this is good. This is a solid buy for me, and you know it's just enough grippy, and you can there's a little extension on the actual magazine that when you put it in, you can get a full grasp on it. So that's a plus. Though for this firearm, I will tell you now, you know, full disclosure, I did have an issue with the magazine catch being defective. That seems to be a recurring thing for me for some reason, but whatever. I sent it in, they fixed it, sent it back, you know, problem solved. So not a big deal. It was fixed and sent back to me. It didn't cause any permanent damage, but I mean that again is why you try them out before you start carrying it to defend your own life. So there's that. And lastly is the High Point C9, and basically I'm looking forward to the comments on this, but I personally think that everybody should have one of these things because you know you want to support an American company and you want to, you know, support American economy. What better way than to buy a really affordable handgun? You know, it's just one of those things that it's like a Bic pen to me. That they work. They're, you know, sure. If you're going to be a realtor and you want someone to sign a contract and all that, you don't hand them a Bic pen, right? That's kind of like the high point of, you know, the pen world. They work. They're taken for granted. You know, they're a dime a dozen, but you know they always work. But what more do you want than that? I would rather have a firearm that I know works really well, that may be ugly and, you know, looked down upon by most people, but it works, right? So this is one of the few guns I've ever had that never had a problem. So I got to give them credit for that. The sights are actually really cool. They're a really interesting color. They have a red rear sight and a bright yellow front sight. And this thing is a tack driver. When I took it to the range, it functioned flawlessly, and it was accurate as all hell. I'm not used to being accurate with guns. I'm not a very good shot, to be honest. That's why I practice a lot. But just as if to demonstrate the point, just holding that out like that made my shoulder tired. That's how heavy this damn thing is. It's like, it feels like it's made out of lead. So it's not something you probably want to carry, but at the very least, you know, when you can't afford anything else, you can get a High Point, 100% American made, lifetime warranty, and you'll know it'll work. This is one of those ones I recommend, just like I recommend a 1911 to anybody. So, yeah, there you go, guys. That's my take on what firearms I've mentioned so far that either worked, didn't work, what didn't work, how I felt about them from my experience. I can't really give you a rough round count, but I can tell you that every single one of these firearms that I've mentioned has had at least a few hundred rounds in them. So enough to know that if it's going to have a bobble, the bobble happened. All right, thank you.